Okay, I think I got it. All right. So, I want to see what questions you have about the upcoming week, and then talk about your test, and then a way you can rework one of the questions that you asked today in class, one of the things you've been practicing already. Let's see, your test, or actually the questions. So any questions you have about upcoming things in the last week?
Not particularly. At the end of this, we can talk about make assignment.
Okay. We can talk about it now while we're on it. So break assignment for
Honors. Again, we've been building in literacy skills and having students respond to not only text-based questions, but questions relating to apply a text to a different situation. Use background information to answer a question from the text. They are on what would be the final chapter. I'm going to have them read Henrietta Lacks, and they have the epilogue.
Mm-hmm.
So I could give them that and then an assignment based on that. I know you also talked about how in the past you used find an article, create a question and an exemplar, like some sort of theme question around it, and then an exemplar response.
Mm-hmm. I think that either would be fine, but I also think you could combine the two. I think that if you had them read that part of Henrietta Lacks and annotate us, and you could have them design a question based along with it, and I have a rubric for how they should design the question, so you can kind of do like the two together. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I can email you the rubric for that.
Yes, please.
Thank you for emailing about NSTA. You're definitely gonna be one of the people I send because
I'm excited.
yeah, there's really great sessions, and I like the ones that you picked out. But also, like, definitely bring an empty suitcase. There's so many giveaways. Last year I came back with like $2,000 for giveaways. Yeah.
It's so overwhelming looking through all the sessions.
Right, that's why I
through one
said
page,
to
I got
pick.
the
That's why I said
bottom.
to pick like 2 or 3.
Yeah, it's like 1 through 25 of 1,100. I was like, oh my god.
Yeah, that's why I did the strands. But that's awesome. Anything else in the next week and a half?
I can think of.
All right, let's talk about your test, because your midterm is going to be next month, and I know the midterm for this class does not exist because it's the first time we're doing it. So I wanted to talk through with you some of the things I look at when I'm going through an assessment, to give you some tips, because Monday, the PE day, you're one of the few people that's going to be here just because of the holiday. And so the block that I have in the afternoon for science team is for you guys to work on designing your midterms, because it's going to be you, Emmy, Brittany Chetty, Nicole Rhodes, and Michael Becker, and each of you teach a standalone course, and so this will be a way for you guys to work together, and I think Nicole will be a really good resource. She can show you some sample midterms, and you can work on designing what it might be.
Absolutely.
So the 3 things I look for when I'm looking at a test, and I wrote these notes on here for you, is the first thing is just like formatting. Right? I look for things like numbering, typos, the length, and like the sequence of the questions. And I think that you're really good at this because you're used to like, the format of the Regents. And I also look at like question style. Like, do you have a chartered graph? Like, do you have a reading? How many multiple choice do you have? Stuff like that. So that's the first thing. It's just kind of like aesthetics. The second is clarity. So this is like the really big thing I've been focusing on in these exams is like when the question is asked, is it clear how to formulate the ideal response?
Yeah, I think you were really helpful. I hope that I incorporated some of that in here, but I know my last exam, like the first read through, I think you were really helpful on like the part B, where I would ask like a very how or why type question and not give like bullets for what I'm actually looking for and what I'm actually assessing in the response. I'm just expecting kids to know, and it's not fair.
And you said on that last test, there's a big difference between the first short response and the second one, because the second one was more open-ended.
Yes.
Yeah. Because often we have an ideal response in our mind, but the way the question is worded can be interpreted in 2 different ways, right? So that's the second thing, is the paired questions. And the third one is I will look at number of questions per topic. So I'll, and this one was difficult because I teach this unit, but on my own exams, and this is something to think about for your midterm, what I'll do is I'll list the main, after I write the test, I'll list the main ideas and put little tally marks for each topic to make sure I'm evenly assessing each thing. Like for my AP environmental test, I realized I had to revise it because I asked 6 questions about one topic and 1 about the other. And then after that, like I will try to look at like the questions that are recall versus process. So
What's
just,
your like balance that you go for? Is there? I mean, I'm sure there's no like formula for.
it depends on timing too. Like if you have a high number of processing questions, you have to make a shorter exam.
Yeah.
You know, so it just depends on what you're going for in that unit. I think if you have lots of recall, you can make it a bit longer. Just look, and just making sure it's not just all recall. I think is a big thing. So 3 things: formatting, clarity of questions, and then like the breakdown of questions by topic. So with those 3 things in mind, I love your multiple choice questions. Like you're just getting like much stronger at writing these. They're all very clear. One thing I would push for, because they don't have to take a Regents in this class, is to start doing 5 choices. I haven't seen that yet, but I think especially you can say in 2nd semester, okay, this is the 2nd semester of honors biology. Like you are taking the PSAT next year. This is go time, and we're gonna start our test or cert. We're gonna start looking more like the SAT. Or like an AP environmental science with the 5 choices. It's a little tweak that kind of ups the ante just a little bit, and it's something that's not that big of a change for kids. There is a lot of vocabulary here.
Yeah, these are like most of what I would say are like recall questions.
Okay, but I think they were good questions. But it is a lot of vocab, so
Okay.
and I saw that you did your review sheet at the end of class when I observed you first period, and I think that's good, because it is a lot of vocab. In the future, one of the things that I do with my AP kids is I will give them the list of the vocab. At the beginning, I give them the list of the vocab.
Like before the unit starts.
No, at the end, and tell them to like show evidence of studying that, whether it be a Quizlet or something like that. And then now we're towards the point in the year where I've transitioned and I said, you tell me what the list of words are. And that would be something that would help them be self-sufficient. And I think this is something that you can do for your midterm. You know, you can say, let's look at unit 1 and 2. These are the words I would pick. And then when they're doing unit 3 and 4, they identify the words and you can check their list. Because they need to learn how to prioritize. You know, as you experience in college science classes, you have to pull out the key information yourself.
Cool. It is vocab heavy because
This is anatomy. It is. I mean, that's fine. I think if you want to help them, since it is vocabulary, if you want to include a little diagram with 1 to 2 questions, like maybe with like one of these heart questions, you put a diagram of the heart just as a visual trigger. I don't think that changes the rigor of the question, and it helps some kids just to get the right frame of mind. But great multiple choice questions. Yeah. Onto the short answers. So these are worth half a point each.
yeah.
Okay, cool. I would just move this over a bit so they can answer on each side. I think that you might get mixed answers for this one, where it says how a sneezing or coughing example. So I would say choose either sneezing or coughing, or I would just tell them one thing.
Okay.
I think both are acceptable because we've seen both of those styles of questions at Regents exams. For them to choose one and know that they shouldn't be writing about both because that's a skill. You know,
Okay.
or choosing one. It just depends
So
on
if I
what
go
you're
like
going
how
for.
is sneezing or coughing, pick one.
So I would almost say sneezing and coughing are examples of maintaining homeostasis. Choose one of these and discuss. And your response be short too.
Awesome.
I think for 13 and 14, your test is long right now. They're not going to finish. This is a period. For 13 or 14, I would choose one of these to do. And the other one I would save maybe for your midterm. Because you are going to need questions since you're writing it from scratch.
Okay.
I liked 13. It's up to you. I think this one would be better served as a multiple choice question.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't directly relate to this.
I think it also I can let, but okay. So that'll shorten. Choose one, 13 or 14.
And then, yeah, choose one, and then the wording of this is a little unclear. Identify the structures and the lungs that is involved.
So I think the thing that I've been struggling with is I've been using structure as like a way of
Which I love.
talking about what is something composed of, what does
Yeah.
it look like.
I love
But I've
that.
also been using structure to refer to like an organ almost. You know, like this is a structure. This is, so I'm like, it's confusing because I'm using it in two different ways, and I'm not sure that my students are able to differentiate between the way that I'm using it. You know, is he talking about the structure, like what does it look like, or is he talking about a structure, like a physical thing? So I got to be careful there, and that definitely came out in this.
But I think that's okay. Like, I think that they need to understand that like
Identify that there should be structure.
they need to know that word in both of those contexts. I think it's okay that you do that language because that's how they will see it in future classes and higher level classes. So I think that's okay that they're learning the nuances. I would just push you though on this, like it's identify the structures in the lung. Like, what is your ideal answer here?
It should be structure. It's a typo, and it's the alveoli are involved in gas exchange.
So I would almost, I know it's redundant, but I would say identify the structure in the lungs involved in gas exchange.
Okay.
Or I would almost say like involve the most important structure in the lungs for gas exchange, right? Because technically they're all involved.
Yeah.
Right?
Because they're all getting the oxygen.
Right. This one, it described the movement of oxygen and carbon dioxide.
Just say describe the movement of oxygen or carbon dioxide, maybe. One more.
What is your ideal answer?
My ideal answer for, let's say, oxygen would be that oxygen diffuses through the alveolar membrane into the capillary so
Okay.
that it can be taken out of
Yeah, I would choose one. And honestly, I would maybe stick with oxygen
Yeah.
since you're talking about gas exchange in the beginning. And I would say describe the path of an oxygen molecule from entrance to capillary. This is going to be really tough for them.
that. Yeah. This question is
But
a
it-
doozy.
But I think that's okay. I think that you're scabbling up to that.
Describe the path of an oxygen molecule.
From inhalation, or, because your ideal answer is for them to say it's absorbed through the alveoli.
Alveolar membrane or alveoli into the capillary. Just
Okay.
like from here to here.
I would almost say describe the path of an oxygen molecule from inhalation to reaching some part of the body. No?
From
Because I think,
to
I'm thinking.
picture.
So the ideal answer, you want to understand the interconnectedness, right?
Yeah.
From capillary.
This is like that connection that we've been harping on between the respiratory system and the cardiovascular system. This is like where that connection is like
right.
the
And
most.
so like I
evident.
would say like describe the path of an oxygen molecule. You could or you could say explain how the respiratory system works with the circulatory system.
That actually might be it.
Because that was one of your enduring understandings you wanted the kids to have. Because memorizing these little mechanics doesn't actually show that they have that key understanding. So I would do that. So what did you write?
Explain how the respiratory system works. Cool.
Even that, they could have said different things. What about explain why the circulatory system depends upon the respiratory system? Or, better yet, sorry, thinking out loud, but explain why the respiratory system depends upon the circulatory system for oxygen transport or something like that.
Yeah, I guess in this context, I'm really not concerned that they can like say they're gonna identify the alveoli here.
Good.
So
And then they're gonna do it
the
right there.
connection is here. I think that's.
And I
much better.
think that you say, so what do we end up with?
Explain why the respiratory system depends on the circulatory system for oxygen transport.
Good, and I would almost delete this first sentence
Yeah,
and
yeah.
just keep it concise, and then this one we decided would be better for multiple choice.
Yeah.
So it doesn't directly relate to this, describe the gas exchange process that occurs between the lungs and the blood. And then that's a great question to synthesize an enduring understanding you have of being in this unit.
Okay.
But I think I would save 14 for like midterm review or something like that. 15 and 16, it's kind of like,
Probably just do one of them.
good, yeah, because it's kind of like double jeopardy. I would just copy and paste one of, or cut and paste one of these into your midterm and you already have a question then. In terms of formatting, I would do like A, this, and then put B underneath it. What are the potential phenotypes? Or like list 2 potential phenotypes, like quantify it.
Okay. So,
It could write a lot or a little for that when you just say what.
yeah, also just looks weird. So,
I would,
like use a Punnett square.
yeah.
And
And
that's
then
gonna
I
be
put the
one.
lines underneath it and then put B. Right, now B1, good, good, good. Or you could do, maybe even move this up and put the A next to it here and the B here. That's a formatting thing, but I do think you should separate out A and B.
Maybe I'll just ask, even to keep it concise, what like is the probability that the child has type B blood? Something like that. Like what is the probability that the child has type B blood? I just want them to, again, keep practicing interpreting the Punnett squares.
What is the probability also could be interpreted a few different ways though, you know?
What do you mean?
Do you want them to give a number? Do you want them to say yes or no? Do you want them to explain?
We've been doing percentages, like,
So I would
25% or 1 out of 4 would obviously make
So I
sense.
would say state a state of fraction and explain how you found this number or something like that to be, you want them to always know like how to formulate an ideal
The
response.
child is blood. Should I say something like, circle the genotypes in the Punnett square?
Ah, yeah, and then put that, and then for C, I would write actually for B, I would have the circle, right, so they're identifying, and for C then to say the number. That would be a great quantitative question. Great, I like that. Because our kids really need practice of breaking down those diagrams, like annotating them, circling them, really looking and processing. It's excellent. 17, I wasn't, why is this one worth 2 points?
Because one is for the yes or no, could someone say
I think they should only get 1 point for that. Maybe, you know, because on the regions even, they have like 2 things where they get to do 2
Yeah, you
things for
gotta
1 point.
yes or no
And it's the
support your
same on the
answer.
AP exams.
Okay.
17, I don't think that you should include the vowels. I think that's a lot.
Okay.
I would just, I think most adults can't, unfortunately, identify the right atrium, right ventricle.
So-
And that's not something that they need to understand. That was extra anatomy information that they don't need to understand necessarily.
So maybe I'll. Okay. All right.
This was a great picture that you found. I'm sure that took you hours to find that pretty picture.
I've looked through so many bad art diagrams.
I know.
The
It's
one
so
I used to
bad.
use, the question had to be label these structures, and there were no vowels, so part 2 would always be drawing
God, no,
vowels,
that's
and it's
great
just
picture.
so brutal.
I love this graph question. It's amazing.
Learned it from you from last exam, so thank you.
These are things to think about for your midterm though too. Like this format is exactly like great for the midterm. The one thing I would say on this one is it just says what is the correlation between more of
State
a
the relationship.
state the relationship between age and heart disease.
What I really liked about this graph is that you have to read closely because at the beginning there's a total column and then it starts with
Mhm,
age.
mhm.
So you'll see.
I like that too. I just like it's relevant. It's they can understand it. I think it's great. For the reading, I just quantify this. You just said what symptoms did Mr. Ray experience? Again, a kid could write a literal lot for that, and your kids who write a lot won't finish the test on time. So I would just say identify one symptom Mr. Ray experienced.
Searching through, so I found a couple of articles, a couple others.
I like this one. I liked it because the kids all know somebody who's gone through surgery. This one described the operation he had. I would just say it's not a really high level question, that's again pulling from the text, and
Yes.
that's what you do here, so I would say state one purpose of Mr. Ray. Anytime you can quantify something like that,